As the coronavirus continues its merciless raid of the United States healthcare system and healthcare workers, it is also, as you know, completely slashing up the economy. We've seen jobless claims completely explode nearly 3,000% over the past couple weeks, with 3.3 million unemployment claims filed just last week, and now 6.6 million claims filed this most recent week. I mean, we're looking at 10 million jobless claims, many of these people losing insurance in the middle of a pandemic. With the Federal Reserve, though, is doing some action in order to respond. Interest rates are now nearly zero, with a bond buying program, which is basically providing $500 billion of Treasury securities, and $200 billion of mortgage-backed securities are being bought up by the Treasury in order to sort of unclog the market a little bit. But with the low interest rates, we are now seeing politicians begin to talk a little bit about infrastructure investments, or some kind of, this is an opportunity to invest. That's what Donald Trump said. He went on Twitter to argue that, look, with interest rates at near zero, it's free money. And so we should now begin infrastructure investments. Now, I actually do agree with this. This is a really good move. Now is the time to invest in infrastructure, and I'm going to get to a few different reasons for why that is, not the least of which being, with a ton of people unemployed, we now need to employ people. People need work, and so we have a clear opportunity to provide jobs for many people who need them. And with low interest rates, it would seem like now is a decent opportunity to do so. But not all conservatives are out here in favor of this. We saw some top conservatives penning a letter in response to Donald Trump's tweet saying that they are worried about this. And of course, the reason why is because of the national debt. They say here, quote, "While our nation will win the war on the coronavirus, it may not win the war on mounting debt." Now, the thing that I find really funny about this is that the question of national debt only seems to arise for questions of investment in America. It didn't seem to arise when we were talking about a massive corporate bailout with massive slush fund. I mean, Congress was claiming that the thing was going to be $2 trillion. The White House was claiming it was going to be $6 trillion, that's how much the bill is worth. People on Wall Street saying, hey, look, actually, we've looked through this thing. We think it's going to be closer to $10 trillion. Nobody has any idea how expensive this thing actually is. Of course, then the debt wasn't a question, but, it's a big question. We talk about infrastructure investments. And now that Nancy Pelosi is out here talking about sending out more checks, Republicans are now talking about debt issues again. When you look at the actual bill last time around, only a few $100 billion were allocated. Only just a few $1 billion were allocated to actual direct checks to Americans. The vast majority of the money being allocated to corporations, and in most instances with a massive slush fund with very few strings attached, which the White House is now claiming that Congress will not have oversight over the slush fund. Nancy Pelosi still claiming that they will have oversight over the slush fund. We'll have to see how that debate plays out, whether or not there actually is oversight. And if there is oversight, how strong will that oversight be? The people who we've seen suggested for, being on the panel right now do not seem like the kind of people who are going to be, really putting teeth into the restrictions. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens. Hopefully there will be tight restrictions. But the point I want to make here is we now do have an opportunity to advance serious infrastructure investments. We have an opportunity to really do something out of this crisis, because we have a lot of people who need work, who need jobs, and we also are looking at a situation with no interest. Now, that doesn't mean that there's, we can talk about the advantages or disadvantages of zero interest. There are negatives, but at least we do have an opportunity to do some serious investments, and hopefully the GOP roadblock to this will not stand. Nancy Pelosi has expressed some interest in implementing this kind of sort of long form infrastructure investment. One possible hiccup, which we will likely see where it regards this infrastructure investment, will have to do with environmental regulation. So the current restrictions require that for any kind of construction project, especially those being implemented by the government, will require an environmental report. And there's some talk that even Donald Trump and some of the Republicans who are interested in implementing an infrastructure project don't want to have a large environmental report. They might want to sort of reduce the requirements for that, sort of reduce a little bit that environmental report. That's going to be a debate that's going to need to be worked out. We're going to have to see how that plays out. Personally, I do obviously want to see strong environmental protections with the things that we invest in. I mean, it seems to me that green technology is the future, so we might as well invest in the future technology when providing this work, and really move forward. But hopefully there will be at least some kind of progress on this. But it also, I do want to make clear, but I'm not just bashing Republicans here. There are some Republicans who are out here doing some good, talking about at least having good forward thinking ideas. So this is Tom Cotton, and this is actually on Saagar Enjeti's Twitter here. He was sort of promoting this. So let me read this for you, because this actually is definitely a better idea that we've seen. His rehiring and job protections idea, he says, it is critical that jobs shed at the outset of this crisis be restored as swiftly as possible. To that end, the United States should provide a refundable payroll tax rebate covering 80% of employer payroll costs for firms of all sizes affected by the crisis, applicable up to the median wage. This relief should be administered I lost my place. Administered directly by the federal government and last for the duration of the health emergency until businesses reopen. This new credit should apply fully to workers laid off in March who are rehired in April or May by their former employers to incentivize rehiring. Firms that do so should receive a bonus credit amounted per rehired employee to assist them with cash flow. So this is at least one good, decent idea. You might be able to improve on it a little bit more, but it's certainly a decent and good start towards this debate. So hopefully sort of that side of the Republican Party that's interested in, actually investing in America and actually, doing things in order to respond to this thing and aren't just, sitting here whining about the national debt. Hopefully that side of the Republican Party will prevail and will be able to work with Democrats and be able to work with Donald Trump in order to implement some kind of infrastructure investment, implement some kind of plan to I don't want to sound terrible in saying this, but sort of take advantage of this situation to at least do the most good that we can during this terrible, dark, terrible and dark crisis, terrible dark times. So hopefully we can see an infrastructure investment. We're going to have to see what happens with this environmental debate, and also where it regards the oil industry. I think that's going to be a big debate, because right now we're looking at situations with the Saudi Arabia and Russia having a bit of an oil standoff. We're going to see how that plays out, because I think that that's going to seriously affect this debate where it regards the infrastructure investment. So, but anyway, that's just what I want to talk a little bit about for this video. If you liked it, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button and consider subscribing. Thanks.